Icho. Thank you very much for those questions. I think they're very important at this juncture so that Zimbabweans stick to constitutionalism and they have an understanding on what happened. I was very involved in that whole process so that people know that the late SB Moyo would give me information. And if you follow my Twitter at the time, I converted it to being the People's Commissar. If you go back, whatever I said was happening because he was telling me what is happening so that I could put it on Twitter. So it was never a coup in the first place. It was a national consensus by the people. And the war veterans led this. And the war veterans then were led by Comrade Matema Danda and Comrade Mahia, who are still there today, who believed that it was important that there was change in leadership, and in change in leadership, there was pressure that had to be put on to the former late president. That issue was again accepted by the opposition party. The opposition parties which were there were in agreement. The late Morgan Tsvangirai was in agreement with it, so was Nelson Chamisa at the time. So though, and other political parties. So it was a national consensus, first of all. So it was never a coup, it was a national consensus, and which would be done peacefully with a match so that you pressurize the president to then leave office in a constitutional manner. That being the case, the current vice president was in China at the time, and there was a report that said that upon his arrival at the Harare International Airport, he would be arrested. That brought in the presidential command guard, which was led by Brigadier General, then Lieutenant General Sanyatwa. He then did use those troops to go and welcome the president, the vice president, who was Commander Defense Forces. That again led to a meeting held by the generals as soon as he arrived. That meeting is the one that then made them come to the table. A national consensus was done, war veterans, political parties involved, then the army was involved. So at no point was the army leading this. It would never lead this. It was a national consensus. That being the case, you remember that there was a statement which was awaited by everybody and a pronouncement that the president would resign on TV. The generals were there. If you go back to that clip, Vice President Chiwenga was there at the time, being the Commander of Defense Forces. They expected the president to resign. The president did not resign. That's where there is the famous Asante Sana. Asante Sana, if you remember that. He did not resign. So what made the president resign was him resigning as president due to Parliament pushing for an impeachment. The impeachment came about that Honorable Maridadi had moved a motion to impeach the president. I had seconded the motion. It was not tabled, but when this happened, we were spoken to withdraw that impeachment so that Honorable Monica Mtrango, who was from the upper house, would then move the motion seconded by Honorable Maridadi. I agreed to that because it was critical. So the party itself, ZANU-PF, was involved. And in ZANU-PF being involved, it was pretty clear that everybody was for it. The speaker, with due respect, and the credit goes to him, did interact with the late president, then Robert Mugabe, to convince him not to allow the impeachment process to happen because he would be then immune to being arrested, to investigations and so forth. Honorable Comrade Bonyongwe was the Minister of Justice and leader of the House. He was tasked to go and convince the president to resign. We were at Harare Sheraton in the HICC Center, awaiting. And the parliament had been sitting already with both houses. And a notice came through by the then Honorable Minister of Justice and leader of government business, Comrade Bonyongwe, a note which went to the president. The president said to the speaker, Honorable Mdenda. That's when he called to say, I have a notice procedurally. And the notice was read out that the president had resigned. So record must be very clear that there was never a coup, but the president resigned. And the pressure was from Parliament. The army itself and the security had failed to convince him to resign. And that interview on ZBC is very clear. That pronouncement is very clear. So we don't want a situation where people have short memories. I don't have a short memory because I was involved in that. So it was a procedural thing where he resigned. So if people today are not happy with the current president or government, you have to follow certain processes. Constitutionalism. Constitutionalism is you having to impeach the president due to a number of reasons which are there in the Constitution. But they must be fit for him to be impeached, or else they will not go through. At this point in time, that can never happen. I don't see it happen. Secondly, Parliament itself must also be ready to move that in terms of the numbers. The current numbers which are there would never go against the sitting president to be impeached. So forget about it, don't dream about it. The reason why I say that, people are excited about people marching and thinking that that will lead to 2017. A river flows, but it does not really flow in the same direction all the time. That you must understand. So that will not happen. And I want to warn people that you are tantamount to staging a coup which results in treason. All these people who are running parallel structures outside the current government, that's treason. And I want to be honest with you, be very careful. You cannot remove a sitting president or a government through any other process other than a democratic election or an impeachment by the president, but also go to the powers of the president. The president equally has the powers to dissolve parliament at any given time. He also has the right to call for a state of emergency where no one will be seen in the streets. Fortunately, him being a constitutionalist, a lawyer, he has not done that. The president can fire anybody in any time within 24 hours. What is critical? What is critical? So one, impeachment is one, but it not work. Processes of removing the president from his position. Secondly, it's at the ZANU-PF Congress, not conference, where you vote. Are you with me? This is where you can take the president out through an electoral process which is there. What are the chances? Zero. He is in control of the party. He is well supported by the 10 provincial chairpersons who are the ones who are mandated to carry out the resolution of these provinces at Congress or at conference. But conference and Congress are two different things. Congress is elective, conference is not. So number one resolution of last year's conference will be implemented because ZANU-PF has got the numbers in parliament. Not only that, the opposition too has been working with the ZANU-PF to ensure that there's an extension. Asingade extension, Diane Usnok Shandira, being a councillor, being a legislator has become a way of employment in Zimbabwe. Who's to blame? You, the people who vote them into power and so forth. So to me, a lot of things which are said by social media have been known that these are people who are not in Zimbabwe. These are people who are not on the ground. If indeed they're on the ground, the 31st of March protest which was organized by Sekurangu, Geza, and so forth, who is a war veteran of repute, I won't lie to you, did not work because social media is not on the ground. The people on the ground were not there, okay, and they are not there, and they will never be there. So the truth of the matter is that let's follow a process, join the party structures, challenge the leadership at party Congress, and choose who you want and so forth. But one of the things which I have to tell you today is that this is the last time, and I'm going to say this, and mark my words, what I say usually happens. We're going to have a leader from the liberation struggle. President Mnangagwa becomes the last leader, and 2030 is moving ahead. And why we want 2030 to move ahead is one, COVID affected some of the progress that he had for the country. Cyclone Idai affected at least 2 years plus. So that's where the extension is coming from. The extension is not coming from him being selfish or wanting to hang on to power. There was work which is supposed to be done. Unforeseen circumstances, they are called. COVID is unforeseen. Idai is unforeseen, Cyclone Idai. So those 2 years are what he is going to be given with his government to fulfill him and his government and parliament, because parliament has also come up with a lot of legislative issues which have got to be dealt with and so forth. That being the case, we also want a young person. We want somebody who's under 60 now to be able to take this country forward from an economic point of view. Who it is, I don't care, but they have to be under the age of 60. While our leaders, Comrade Mnangagwa, Comrade Chiwenga, Comrade Mahadi, and so forth, are there to guide these young people coming through. To not guide Bafana, so that by founding principles, a struggle. Because takuda guidance, you see, we don't want a situation where we wait for somebody to be out of power to mentor or to guide these young leaders coming through. They need guidance, whether you like it, but we need an economic mind, we need an economic brain. The liberation also talks about economic emancipation. You brought it to us, we agree, but there's no ownership. No one owns the country. So that is something from a generational point of view, which I must be telling you today, we need a leader who's under 16 and we need him to be guided. Never kurwa ningaripo. Kana 2030 ikangopinda chete tinotarisa kuti vakuru vachafamba nevadika vanenge vachitungamira and so forth. Chero ari maZimbabweans andina basa ndoda kuona vana vachidiki vachipindawo musangano and so forth. Inini hangu ndiri under 16 ndofunga ndogona kukwana pamwe and so forth. I have worked for this country. I have worked for people, and I deserve to also be given a position. But while I deserve to be given a position, I've never been given a deserving position. I'm also not lobbying for one, I'm not campaigning for one, but I would like to be in the echelons of power one day so that I'm able to also bring about the change and so forth. What we don't want as a nation is a situation where we intimidate each other, we abuse each other, cyberbullying, and we believe in entitlement. No one, and I've told you, Vachiwenga, vakazojoina nemasoja later on after national consensus yasetwa. It was a national consensus. Zvakandirwadza ndezvekuti ve-opposition vamwe vacho vaifanopiwawo zvigaro because they contributed significantly to the Second Republic in terms of ushering the leadership of President Idi Mnangagwa. So, as a village head, as a political analyst and a political guru, I will always support the government which has been elected. I'll support the president who has been elected. Not only that, I'll also defend him. Because what I don't want is things to be done which are not constitutional. Because the precedence we are setting is bad. Whoever is president tomorrow will be removed through the same ways and so forth. Impeachment, I've told you, is one of them. Secondly, go to Congress. If you're not in the structures of ZANU-PF, join the structure of ZANU-PF. Go to their meetings in the PCC, PEC, DCC, district branch cell, and raise your point through that. Tambiro oko, mozoita, but Paris, nothing like that will ever happen. I thought I would tell you, ndafara kuti pamasaisai zvandinotaura inini munozvipindura nekuti ndezvechokwadi handizere munopindura nekundituka nekuti chokwadi nekuti chokwadi chinoradza. I still demand kuti kuconference kweZANU-PF resolution number 2 inofana kuitwa iye zvinezvi ndeyekuti machina neese ma-investors, they have got to be scrutinized. We need an audit on why they are here and so forth. President Xi Jinping, the Chinese president, is a stickler for things doing properly. Because we have a relationship with him, it does not mean that his people must break